A speech at the Department of Justice yesterday, U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland praised his department's staff for sustaining what he called the set of norms to guide the Justice Department's adherence to the rule of law. Well, among the norms is to not allow the Department of Justice to be used as a political weapon. But the Justice Department, under Attorney General Garland at least, has drawn repeated criticism for both being weaponized against political enemies as well as perpetrating a two-tiered system of justice. So, what has the Department of Justice done to keep its promise to not be weaponized? Well, joining me now to discuss this is Jeff Clark. He's a senior fellow and director of litigation at the Center for Renewing America. Jeff, welcome back to Washington Watch. Always great to have you.
Well, thanks a lot, Jody. It's good to be here. And talking about this speech that Garland gave yesterday is going to be a treat, I think.
Yeah, I do too. And I don't know of anybody who can break it down any better than you can for us. I want to begin with a clip and get your reaction to this. If we can, let's begin with clip number 4, please.
Our norms are a promise that we will not allow this department to be used as a political weapon. And our norms are a promise that we will not allow this nation to become a country where law enforcement is treated as an apparatus of politics.
All right. Our norms are a promise. Your reaction to this?
Look, Jody, the Constitution is our ultimate source of law. It is the superseding source of law. Federal statutes come next in the hierarchy, right? Then you could look at federal regulations on down. But norms are not really on my hierarchy list of legal, binding legal authorities, because norms are not the Constitution. They're not a statute. They're not regulations. And so, I regard this as me actually having won the argument, because I put out a paper quite a while ago now on the Center for Renewing America's website called "The DOJ is Not Independent," and faced a lot of initial skepticism because of the fact that after Watergate, they really did try to establish this idea that the Justice Department was independent of the president, which is totally contrary to the Constitution. The Constitution provides that the chief law enforcement officer of the United States, or what the framers in the Federalist Papers called the chief magistrate, not just the commander-in-chief, but the chief magistrate, is the president of the United States and him alone. There is no reference to an attorney general in the Constitution. The attorney general was created as a cabinet officer very early, but the department was not created until the second half of the 19th century. So the idea that its norms control over the Constitution, control over statutes, is totally wrong. And so you have to start asking yourself, well, what are these norms? These norms were set up essentially to try to strip power away from the president of the United States, to create an unaccountable bureaucracy inside the Justice Department. And that's why we have all these problems, because the president can't supervise these things. Now, it's convenient for a Democrat president like Joe Biden, or would be convenient for a Kamala Harris, God forbid, if she were to be elected, because they're very happy with what the predominantly Democrat career staff want to do. And as you pointed out, the department under Merrick Garland and under Joe Biden has been completely politicized. And we know that Joe Biden sends them love notes from time to time through, at the very least, the New York Times, but also, I think, through his White House counsel. So the idea that they have cut the president off from supervising the department is also a myth. However you look at it, this is a misbegotten system at this point. It needs to be changed, and they're big time afraid of the fact that if President Donald J. Trump returns to the White House, that he is going to get constitutional control of the Justice Department again. And that is not using it as a political weapon. That just means that the president, he's the one who's accountable to the people, and he's going to make them accountable to him.
Oh, and of course, they're already accusing Trump, if he were to regain the White House, that he is going to weaponize the Department of Justice. I mean, these people always seem to accuse others of the very things they themselves are guilty of. I love what you brought up about the chief magistrate. That's probably information that most people are not aware of. A great, great point there. Let me play another clip. Play clip 2, and then I'd like to get your reaction to this one as well.
There is not one rule for friends and another for foes. One rule for the powerful and another for the powerless. One rule for the rich and another for the poor. One rule for Democrats and another for Republicans, or different rules depending on one's race or ethnicity.
All right, so I don't know how he says it. I mean, we have the FACE Act. We've got prosecution of peaceful protesters at abortion clinics. We have parents being targeted for speaking at school boards. We have failure to enforce federal statute against protesters harassing conservative Supreme Court justices at their homes. Lawfare against the president. I mean, these are just a few examples. Are we seeing similar efforts against those on the left, or is this all seemingly directed towards those on the right?
I think it's virtually all directed toward those on the right, Jody, and clearly that's a violation of equal protection. They try to just create these new norms that in some instances are trying to recreate what we already have, right? We have a 14th Amendment that guarantees equal protection. Now that applies to the states, but that's caused the Supreme Court to basically say there's an equal protection component to the due process clause in the Fifth Amendment, which does apply to the federal government. So DOJ obviously shouldn't be going around and saying we're going to prosecute only Republicans or only Democrats. But if you look at what they do in practice, they have definitely dropped the hammer on Republicans, conservatives, MAGA people. And, you know, the slaps on the wrist go to Antifa. They go to the Hunter Bidens of the world. I mean, had the judge not called foul a very sweetheart plea deal that basically would have wrapped up all of the alleged crimes against Hunter Biden would have been entered. And, you know, they had to take a step back from that and then proceed more even-handedly against him in multiple cases. But that just goes to show you they try to do some things that make it look like they're being even-handed, like they dropped an indictment against a Chinese woman in New York associated with Governor Hochul. But I think that was all an advanced cover operation because they really wanted to focus on their so-called next Russiagate issue against Tenet Media and Lauren Chen and conservative influencers who, were involved somehow with Tenet Media. That's their main operation, to try to skew the election. And they violate equal protection issues all of the time. It's totally unconstitutional and it's lawless.
Let me land the plane here. We've got less than a minute here, Jeff, but when Attorney General Garland talks about his department acts without fear or favor, how do you take that in really less than a minute? Are they authentically calling balls and strikes, or something else going on here?
I don't think so, Jody. And let me use the example of parents at school boards, because I was at DOJ, as a freshly minted political appointee as a young man at DOJ on 9/11. And a few years after that, we established the 7th litigating division at the Justice Department, the National Security Division. That was designed to go after international terrorists and to protect us from international foreign threats. That same division and its counterpart in the FBI was used to go after parents because they were upset with transgender bathrooms.
Wow. Jeff Clark, thank you so much. Incredible information. Thank you for keeping a pulse on it. Appreciate you being on Washington Watch this evening.